Peaches had never been one to seek danger, yet danger had a way of finding her. The night she stumbled upon Vernon's darkest secret, the balance of her life shifted into an unforgiving spiral. What she uncovered was not merely a hidden scandal or a fleeting mistake, but a truth so devastating it threatened to annihilate every fragment of power, respect, and legacy Vernon had worked tirelessly to build. It was not the kind of truth that lived quietly in shadows. It was explosive, sharp-edged, and merciless, and anyone who dared to hold it became a target marked for destruction. At first, Peaches could hardly process the weight of what she had seen. Her hands trembled, her pulse raced, and a cold awareness wrapped itself around her like a suffocating cloak. She knew that exposing Vernon would not just ruin him, it would ignite chaos across families, friendships, and alliances carefully woven within the gated community that thrived on appearances and silent corruption. But silence carried its own peril. To know such a secret and keep it buried meant becoming complicit in something sinister, something that clawed at her conscience in the dead of night. Vernon, seasoned in the art of manipulation and survival, sensed her unease almost instantly. He watched her more closely than she realized, studying every glance, every hesitation, every shift in tone. To him, suspicion was a predator's instinct, and Peaches had already revealed too much through the flicker of fear in her eyes. It was enough for him to know she had seen something she should never have witnessed. In that moment, she stopped being just another woman inside the walls of privilege, she became a threat to be neutralized. The days that followed were suffocating. Subtle reminders of Vernon's reach appeared around every corner. A car followed her too closely one evening, its headlights glaring in her rearview mirror until she sped into a gas station trembling. Anonymous notes slipped beneath her door carried no words, only symbols that made her skin crawl. Phone calls rang in the middle of the night, each ending with silence broken only by the faint sound of breathing on the other end. Peaches realized she was not just imagining it, she was being watched, tested, and cornered. Vernon's power did not lie merely in his reputation or his wealth but in the invisible web of influence that stretched across law enforcement, politics, and business. His empire had roots that ran deep, and anyone who thought they could sever those roots quickly learned how mercilessly he protected them. Peaches was now trapped within that web. The more she considered speaking out, the tighter the noose seemed to draw around her. She knew the danger was not vague or distant, it was immediate, intimate, and mercilessly close. The tension inside her chest grew unbearable. Each morning she woke with the dread that it could be her last day of safety. Sleep offered no escape, only vivid nightmares of being hunted through dark corridors where Vernon's shadow always caught up to her. Friends began noticing her withdrawn state, the constant flicker of paranoia in her eyes, but Peaches could not confide in them. To share the secret was to endanger them as well, and the thought of dragging others into the storm Vernon could unleash felt like an unforgivable betrayal. Still, she wrestled with the choice. To stay silent meant living under a constant threat, shackled by fear and complicit in Vernon's crimes. To expose the truth meant igniting a war that could consume her completely. Her conscience screamed for justice, but her survival instinct clawed at her resolve. The conflict tore her apart, leaving her hollow, frayed, and trembling in the shadows of her own life. Vernon's methods of intimidation escalated with chilling precision. A beloved pet of hers vanished one evening, leaving behind only a bloodied collar in her garden. Her car brakes failed on a winding road, sending her spinning off the shoulder, narrowly surviving what investigators would later dismiss as a mechanical failure. Even her closest allies began to pull away from her, manipulated by Vernon's subtle whispers and carefully planted lies that painted her as unstable, unreliable, and on the brink of collapse. Piece by piece, he dismantled the foundation of her world, isolating her in preparation for a final strike. What Peaches did not yet realize was that Vernon thrived on control not only through fear but also through the art of breaking wills. He wanted her not simply silenced but destroyed from within, shattered into someone too weak to resist him. It was not enough for her to keep the secret, she needed to become a ghost of herself, an example to anyone else who might dare to stand in his way. But Peaches carried something Vernon underestimated, resilience born of desperation. The more he tightened his grip, the more sparks of defiance flickered inside her. She began documenting everything, hidden files, photographs, fragments of conversations, evidence that could piece together the full magnitude of his deception. She knew the risk was monumental. If Vernon discovered her attempts, her fate would be sealed. But survival without action felt like a slow death, and she could not allow herself to fade into silence while carrying such a monstrous truth. The turning point came when she realized Vernon's reach extended further than she imagined. A trusted friend revealed, through trembling lips and darting eyes, that Vernon had ordered surveillance not just on her but on her family. It was no longer only her life at stake, anyone close to her was in danger. That revelation shattered any illusion of safety she clung to. Now, exposure was not only about justice, it was about severing the chains of terror before they consumed everyone she loved. Every step forward was a gamble. She moved like a shadow, careful with her words, guarded with her actions, yet the pressure mounted relentlessly. Vernon's chilling presence haunted her even in places he was not physically there, as though his power seeped into every corner of her existence. The gated community that once felt like a sanctuary of wealth and prestige had transformed into a labyrinth of traps, each turn echoing with the possibility of betrayal. Her fate teetered on a razor's edge. She knew Vernon's patience was finite, and soon he would escalate beyond threats and manipulations. The secret she held was a ticking time bomb, and as long as it remained in her possession, her life was a countdown with no certainty of survival. Yet amidst the terror, a resolve hardened within her. She understood that her choice was no longer between silence and truth, it was between surrendering to fear or rising against it, no matter the cost. The days ahead promised nothing but peril. Every movement carried weight, every glance over her shoulder confirmed the invisible eyes that stalked her, every heartbeat thundered with the knowledge that Vernon's shadow was drawing closer. Still, Peaches clung to the fragile hope that exposing the secret, no matter how dangerous, was the only way to reclaim her freedom from the suffocating grip of a man whose empire was built on lies. And so, her battle began not just against Vernon, but against the suffocating fear that threatened to consume her. In the silence of the night, with danger pressing at every corner, Peaches prepared to risk everything. The truth she carried was a blade, and though it might cut her down, it could also shatter the empire of the man who sought to destroy her. The outcome remained uncertain, but one fact had become undeniable. Vernon had underestimated the woman he sought to silence, and the storm that was about to break would leave no life untouched.